Okay, stage two. So Nathan got us up to the callus cutting. So now we're going to take it from the callus cutting to initiating roots and maybe even roots to the edge for our stage two. Our goal here is to develop roots and develop them aggressively. That way we can remove the URCs or remove the liners from the mist. That misting situation just is inviting disease problems. And if we leave it under there too low, we'll actually delay plant development. So the goal, get them out from under the mist as soon as possible. Here's kind of a general misting strategy I wanted to share with you. Um, in this table, you see across the top there, we've got morning, day, evening, and overnight. So when are you misting or when are you not misting? On the left, you'll see that here we have the days of propagation or the stage of propagation. In general, those first few days, we are rehydrating that URC, and so we will probably mist all day long and even throughout the night. However, as we start to leave that stage one and a few days later, we don't need quite as much mist. So maybe in the morning we're still misting, but not quite as much. During the day when the sun is out and lots of activity going, the plants are transpiring. Yes, we may want to have a pretty robust misting schedule, but again, in the evening we're starting to reduce it. And depending on where you are, how arid your environment is, you may or may not want to turn the mist off. But my suggestion is that within 4 to 5 days, you should not be misting in the evening time. But again, that'll vary for each operation. Then you can see as the plant gets older and older and older, we're gradually just misting, reducing the mist as needed or reduced, what have you. And then as again, a little older again, maybe we're only misting during the day if needed. Again, the goal is to get roots on fast and get them out of the misting chamber or out of the misting benches. So this looks very similar to the slide Nathan just went through with you, but let me highlight some of the differences here that we're discussing in stage two. Again, we want to minimize stress and we want to grow roots. That's the goal here. You can see our air temperatures are starting to drop just a little bit, okay? But our soil temperatures are still nice and warm. That's where we need that extra warmth to really generate growth down there on that base, on that rooting plate. The light intensity, we've started to increase it. We were at 4 to 6, now we're at 6 to 8. Our humidity, we've still got pretty good humidity here, but our mist program is decreasing, okay, or VPD is increasing here. Again, minimal air movement. The plants don't have enough robust root system on them yet to really handle a lot of air transfer. Yeah, we may want a little bit to keep the greenhouse from getting too stagnant, but we're not looking for leaf movement here. Okay, and then once we see or once we know that those roots are starting to develop, and this takes sacrificing a few liners from time to time to get to know it, we've got to really start decreasing that moisture at the presence of roots. So also, we've got roots, you must have fertility in the system. Nathan mentioned maybe even having some fertility in the mist. I'm a big fan of that. There's a few crops that don't like it, but most crops respond very well to it. Botrytis management. Botrytis is our biggest problem in the propagation house. So yes, you still need to manage that. I would suggest switching chemistries. You'll see earlier we recommended a contact fungicide that actually holds up under mist. Now maybe switch around and look at something like a more systemic type fungicide that prevents not only against botrytis but other diseases as well. And yes, the pest management never stops, so continue to do that. And don't forget our checklist over here on the right. Have we thought about all these different changes and what needs to occur in the crop in stage two?
So we keep talking about nutrition. And one thing I think is really simple is cuttings are like babies, right? We need to feed them. They have a finite amount of resources. Being a new dad myself, I'm fully aware of this, but we need to think about that with our cuttings too. And so we talked about misting with fertilizer, but also once we have those roots at stage two, we can take them up through the substrate as well. So our part per millions that we're shooting for is 75 to 150 parts per million, but we do want to watch out for the ammonium and nitrate ratio. Ammonium is going to be taken up much more quickly, and that's going to cause stretch, and we do not want that with our liners. We want to make sure we're hitting the spec and the spec that fits within the box that we're shipping. So petunias may be a good indicator for you if you are getting a little bit low on nutrition, Those things, if you're low on phosphorus, they're going to purple up really quickly. And sometimes it's good to have that indicator crop to make sure you're on target. If you haven't, especially been making sure that your injectors are doing what they're supposed to and that you've mixed up the right amount of feed as well. So what are some of those nutrition deficiencies that you can run into in these early stages, and how do they affect your growth? As I said, petunia is a good indicator crop. And so this study that we looked at used a variety of different petunias. And some things are going to show different deficiencies than others. Up here on the top left, this petunia variety, all of these were watered with no fertilizer whatsoever, which I don't recommend. But this variety was basically asymptomatic, meaning it didn't show any nutritional deficiencies, but it was decreased in growth. So this is all green and looks good, but it's not what we should have been able to obtain. This variety to the right did present some yellowing, which can be caused by nitrogen, but also watch out for your sulfur levels and especially that iron to manganese ratio. If you have the chance and are running into nutritional deficiencies, try and submit a sample to the lab and make sure you know what you're missing. This ratio of iron and manganese should be about 1. On the bottom, purpling is a very common thing. Also, many of us are moving to LEDs as well. And when you think about light, the more you give, generally the more growth you're going to get. And so those plants are hungry and growing. And if you aren't supplying the right nutrition, they're going to present these deficiencies. Purpling is most commonly associated with phosphorus, but there can be other things as well. But knowing that phosphorus may show up in various ways, these two petunia varieties, one showed it more as an overall leaf yellowing, and the other was more interveinal, but both phosphorus deficiency. So while these are important and good to look at what are the differences in color, overall these were slow to root, poor branching, and vigor. So we do not want these to be coming out of our greenhouse. Here's a picture of a variety of those liners on top with no fertilizer. We can see this purpling with the phosphorus deficiency, and we're seeing the yellowing here as well. And then here's those same varieties when they had a fertilizer program with them. You can see the growth is almost double in both of those varieties. So this is what we're looking for. Make sure that your fertilizer program is on point and get it tested if you're not.